feels great, and I think trust is something which is very interesting. When you're giving this award for India's most trusted, and trust has got many dimensions. But one important thing about trust is that it has to be earned, and it has to be earned the hard way. So yes, I have got other felicitations, but trust, I think, is pretty much the most important, especially when you're in a leadership position, because trust here means the trust of many stakeholders. It's not just the people that work with you, it's your colleagues, your team, the shareholders, the company, the people that you report to. So trust has got many dimensions, so it's very interesting, and I'm really honored to be given one of the best leaders on basis of trust. Yeah, well, the landscape has changed quite dramatically. I think the media landscape has changed, the marketing landscape has changed, and therefore the brand landscape has changed, and our industry has changed. So everything has changed. I joined more than a couple of decades ago, and we have seen some dramatic changes. And now dramatic changes happen every couple of years rather than in a decade. So yes, and I think the starting point is from a couple of decades ago. The starting point is the plethora of new brands that have come in just about every category. The second thing is that the competition today is cross-category also, because ultimately it's the share of wallet and share of mind. And there is enough and more number of categories and brands vying for that attention of the consumer. The other big thing that I noticed since I have been in media for 7 years prior to rejoining J. Walter Thompson is the fact that media channels have exploded. So all these changes have resulted in a very complex marketing environment in which brands and marketeers are working today. It is challenging, but it's also very interesting and certainly very exciting. And it's not going to stop. Even as we speak, our industry is changing dramatically every couple of years, as I said, and now there is talk of new competition getting into advertising, and including artificial intelligence, programmatic buying. So every day is a new exciting day, and change is not going to stop. I will not completely agree that Indian brands are not competing well with international brands. It depends on the category. Look at the entire startup world. Indian brands are actually giving a run for the money to some of their very big and experienced brands, whether it's the e-commerce space or it's the shared taxi space. So it's not as if that across categories the Indian brands are not competing well. Even in consumer and consumer goods, some of the brands are giving the big multinational brands a run for their money, and they have been doing it for a while. Of course, the later ones are all the Ayurvedic efforts of brands that have come up. Yeah. In fact, I would go so far to say that Indian brands are now actually giving a run to the money of multinational brands in their own countries. Brands like Airtel and Wipro and TCS and Infosys. They are Apollo, for example, Hero. They are now actually going beyond Indian shores and competing with foreign brands in their backyard. So I don't think that the Indian brands are not competing as well. I actually think that it's now the movement is reverse. A couple of decades ago, some of our international clients with big brands used to come to India, and we used to get their business. And we were told that here, your multinational parent is giving you some business because our global brand is coming to your country. And now it's actually reverse traffic. Some of the brands that we handle in India are going to the rest of the world, and now J. Walter Thompson head office is the beneficiary of the brands from India. So therefore, I wouldn't necessarily agree, but I think your question about brands, as I said, the competition is intense. Maybe 3 decades ago, there were not so many international brands in India per se. Today they are. So therefore, the Indian brands have no choice but to compete with not just the local competitors, but also multinational competitors because of globalization and the fact that liberalization took place a few decades ago. And now anybody who wants to launch in India, being a big market, is here. So as I said, fun times, exciting and very challenging times. It's an interesting question, but I think India as a brand itself has moved up. And I think whether the government or a country actively promotes the business interests of their people and their entrepreneurs, that's a separate matter. But I think the very brand image of the country helps in promoting Indian brands. And I think that makes a difference. And in fact, today it's not just the brands from Europe and America. I think a large competition and interest is coming from the East, from the China and the Koreans and the Japanese. So that's something these are the perils and the benefits of globalization. It's a level playing field, and everyone can compete in every market. And once you start the wave of globalization, then it's very difficult to contain it. So I'm saying it's good, and it's good for brand makers like us, and good for our industry, that there is more action in the brand space, and we have more business to handle. You know, it's continuously evolving. And one thing that I say to everyone is there is no point fighting change. It's inevitable. I think what is required is the ability of organizations to make sure that they're not stuck with status quo, that they have got the ability to change, they are flexible. I even think organization structures are sometimes stuck in the past because everyone loves status quo. It's very comfortable. You know, you have grown up in a certain way. You hope that nothing is going to change, but it is changing, and it's changing so fast. And what the real change, it's not as if the change is today. When I started my career, fax machines was something new. Yeah. Pagers came in, mobile telephones came in, color television came in. So it reveals my vintage. So it's not the internet came in. So it's as my son says, he is 14 years old. He said, "Oh, in your ancient times." Well, for a 14-year-old born in this century, it is ancient. So it's not as if that the change is anything new. I think it's just the pace of change that has changed, and I think it's much faster now. So it's actually disrupting all industries, and it's disrupting the communication and media industry also. And except that I genuinely believe that there are smart people, and there are people in the advertising world as well as in the media world who are smart enough to take all these changes not as challenges but as opportunities. So the more the platforms, the more ways to reach your consumer. So it's as long as you're willing to adapt, as long as you're not stuck with your current status quo, as long as you're not driven by your past experience, I think all these challenges and changes are opportunities, and that's how at least our company and how we see it. You talked about trust. I think the most important thing for a leader is to be able to trust his or her team. And I think to me, as far as I'm concerned, I think one thing that I concentrate on is to surround myself with very, very competent professionals, and then give them and empower them and give them rope to fly or to hang themselves. And as they say, hire very competent people, develop a good team, get them to collaborate with each other, and then get out of the way. So if you ask me what's the one thing that I think is important, that is to be able, for a good leader, that's to be able to get a good team together, and then get the team to collaborate and play well. I genuinely believe whether it's a society or it's people, if you don't empower them, then you're not helping them realize their potential. So it works for people, it works for people in my team, and the same thing works for a society. The more you try to control, the more you're hampering their growth, and you're hampering the growth of your own company or your country. So empowerment for me, both for corporates, for individuals, for society, is very important and is key. So I hope our society continues to empower more and more people, and rather than the other way around. Authority, control. Again, you say about trust. I think one of the key things about a good leader is delegation. And I keep telling the people that work with me that a leader only delegates authority, not responsibility. Right? I delegate my authority to somebody who works with me and say, okay, I trust you. I give you my authority to take decisions, but the responsibility still rests with me. I can't tell the person that I'm reporting to that somebody else did something and it's not my responsibility. So I think the most important thing is to be able to delegate authority so that people can feel empowered and take decision. It makes your own life easier and their lives more empowered. Saturday and Sunday. Right? That's the thing about technology today. You can say that you're working all the time, or you can say that because you can work from anywhere, it allows you to do many more things even at a personal level. So for me, the weekends are important. It's family time, and for me, Sundays is golf with friends, and that's very important for me. And the other thing for me to de-stress is playing squash every morning. And again, I say morning because that's the time that you have, which is your own, and nobody will take the time between 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock away from you. The same thing in the evening is difficult. So I try to knock off my squash early in the morning and golf on a Sunday. And if I can, another couple of times during the month, I try to fit in some golf. But again, you have to find the time, and I think it's very important to be able to find that time, to be able to unwind. It makes you a better professional, it makes you a better leader, and it makes you a better corporate person in any case.